Welcome back to Nick Lenz's Movie Reviews, episode number 57. This one I'm going to talk about basically what films I saw this particular year. And these were basically new films that were released this very year. Alright? Now there's at least 12 I saw in theaters. Overall there was like 14 live action films I saw this year. 12 of them I did see in theaters, 2 I missed, but I did see them online. One of these films that basically I want to see, I may see it in the near future, I don't know yet. This film is Murder Orient Express. I don't have an opinion on this film yet. Maybe I'll see it in the future. I don't know. I hope so because I've seen the original one. Okay, so let's get started. Basically, I also got my thoughts on these films because only about 1 or 2 of these films I've actually done an actual review of these for this particular channel. So I kind of figured though I give my brief thoughts on these films. All right, the first film I saw this year was Logan. Yep, Logan, a film that I myself highly anticipated. I saw this with my dad, and he really enjoyed the film. Not only just because Patrick Stewart was in it, but because also they had Johnny Cash music in it and because my dad is a huge country music fan, and he loves Johnny Cash music. So it's great the fact he got a chance to see this film, and also the fact that the guy who directed this film also directed the film Walk the Line, which is basically a biopic about Johnny Cash's his early years of his long running career in country music. Yep. Um, in my honest opinion, great film, great performance, basically for Patrick Stewart as Professor Charles Xavier, and Hugh Jackman as the Wolverine, his last final appearance, and a great live action debut for the actors who played Laura. Let me look up her name here. Let's see. Now, the film itself was very heavily inspired by the storyline Old Man Logan, because, well, it takes place in the future, and, excuse me, though it takes place, even though it came out just this year, I think it takes place about, okay, it takes place exactly, get this, 12 years in the future. Yes, and apparently it's been 25 years since the events of Days of Future Past. Yeah, apparently it's been 25 years, and the whole jumping ahead many years and something happened. Basically, Xavier's responsible for having the X-Men, not exactly Wolverine like it was in the comics. I gotta get hands to Dolphin Keane, who was the first ever woman to play X-23 in live action. This by far was a brilliant performance on the part of her, and the fact that for a lot of people, this is a lot of people's very favorite film of the year, and it's one of 2 R-rated films I actually saw this year. Yes, one of 2. Actually, one of 3, because I think Hitman's Bodyguard, I think that was also rated R as well. So I saw a few R-rated movies this year. But yeah, Logan. Yep, I saw Logan this year. Awesome film. Alright, next up was Power Rangers. Yep, Power Rangers. The 2017 reboot film that has nothing to do with the series but takes elements from the show, and I've done also a review of the series back, I think it was February, March, I think it was when this film came out. I don't really go why some people didn't want to go see this film, but I don't blame Saban for basically the failure of this film. I blame Lionsgate for not marketing his film properly. Yeah, I actually got the film recently on DVD. I purchased it. I really enjoy this film. My friend Edgar really enjoys it. I've done a review of him on this particular film. In my honest opinion, I think this film should get a sequel, and the film has supported not only people who actually like the film, like the audience, but also people who were actually on the original TV show. Yes, I've heard from 2 actors who have been on the show via articles via comicbook.com who have seen the film and they like it. And these 2 actors are Austin St. John, the original Red Ranger. He loves the film. And also Jason Nervy, the guy who played Wes Collins from Time Force. I've actually seen this guy in person at Comic-Con, just a few years ago. And these guys really love this film. And I appreciate the fact that you have the actors supporting this film. I just kind of wish that more people saw it. And the film did make back its budget, yes. but it couldn't break even. Almost did. It was about halfway there, but I think it made like total like almost $150 million before they took it out. But also saying John's problem with the film was the swords. He had no problem with the actors. As a matter of fact, he didn't like the actor who actually played his character from the character he played in the original show, Jason Scott Lee. Though they changed it to uh, Jason Lee Scott. Yeah, they kind of switched on his name, but it's the same character. But simply put, he's basically a jock. Basically, that's what his name in this particular film. But for this particular film, in my honest opinion about this film, it, like Logan, a good film. I just kind of wish this film basically got a lot of people that went to go see it. I went to go see it with my dad. He actually liked the film too. A lot of times I saw it with my dad as well because I don't take anybody else with me when it comes to these films. Alright, next up is Kong Skull Island. This one I saw with my grandmother and my aunt. Yep, this is the only film I did not saw with my parents at all. We actually went to go see this basically when my grandmother and my aunt were in town, basically for my sister's wedding for a weekend. So we decided, though we had nothing really much to do in particular. I think it was like a Wednesday. I think it was. Yeah, we had nothing to do, so we decided, hey, why don't we go to the movies and go see this particular film? I liked it. My aunt liked it. My grandma didn't have much opinion on the film, even though she probably fell asleep during the film. And I recently got this film for Christmas. Now, one thing I really enjoy about this film is that it pays so much homage to the other films. Like, if you look at Kong himself, his body looks very much like the 1933 Kong, basically, where it's very furry. Though a lot of the time people when to depict Kong, he's usually very smooth. Yes, that's usually the way he is. His head is very heavily inspired by the 2005 Kong. Yes, the one done by Peter Jackson, the film, but portrayed by Andy Serkis. Yep. They take some other elements from other films, like the whole thing of him being held out with chains. That is actually something from all the incarnations of Kong. Of course, basically all of the 4 previous versions of Kong did in fact do this, where he was at one point chained down, and in the case of him shot by bullets, this is actually from at least the 3 of the 4 films that basically feature him. I'm not counting King Kong because that's different, and plus I haven't seen it. But this is actually the second film where he's shot by helicopters. Though in the case of the first time this happened, which basically happened in 1977 film, he was standing on top of a building. Yeah, he was standing on top of the World Trade Center in that film. In the case of this film, he was standing on a hill. Yeah, he was standing on a hill when he got shot up. And even though the fact that some of the characters were memorable, their names were forgettable, but they at least were memorable. And also the fact that at least half the characters got killed off before the film ended. But the film was amazing. There's no denying that. And I love the fact this film was actually set, believe it or not, in 1975. Just basically when the Vietnam War is basically wrapping up. That's basically when this film takes place. Yeah, it takes place the same year as the fall of Saigon. Yep. It takes place exactly. It's basically in a way a film takes place before Godzilla per se, but it's not necessarily a prequel. But there are hints at other monsters basically. Now, I actually missed the post-credits scene when it aired. I initially saw there was a post-credits scene of there was one basically I saw of John C. Reilly's character get a chance to go home and see his family. The other one was the whole interrogation thing. In fact, there's more monsters out there. Yep. So I'm very happy with the fact I saw this film in theaters. Okay, next one is Fate of the Furious. This one I actually saw back in April. At least the 8th film for the franchise, and the first one since the 3rd film not to feature Paul Walker. Though in the case of this time, there actually was a reasoning for him not being in the film. He was referenced a couple times. The reason was the film because the actor died, and I heard a very stupid rumor going around that Universal was going to CGI resurrect the guy this was before the film came out last year. I heard about this, that Universal was going to CGI resurrect Paul Walker, which I think a lot of people would have been upset about. In the case of Tarkin, basically what happened with him, the actor Peter Cushing, when he got CGI resurrected, it was necessary because it was part of the plot, and plus he wasn't seen a lot in the film. In the case of this film, it was unnecessary because they retired the character with the last film. And plus, it's quite possibly the best film in the whole series. And it's the third film, at least the no, it's the fourth film on the road to feature The Rock in it, and I love it. As far as I know, there is plans to do a ninth. I heard that there's plans to do a ninth and 10th film, but who knows when they're gonna come out. But this is actually one of two Vin Diesel movies I saw this year. The other, of course, is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I saw this one back in May. It's the only film I saw in May. This is why I think I want to see a couple other films. Um, and this is something I thought was really weird this year. May and June had the same problem. You have a big film get release at the start of the month, and somehow this film stays number one for the entire month, basically eating up all the box office, basically causing like half the films that come out that month that turn into box office bombs. I have never seen this before when it comes to particular films. Like I heard that Baywatch got this. Stranger Tides, I think it was one of what it was actually a film actually did decently really well. But like almost every film that came out in May, with the exception of Pirates of the Caribbean after Guardians came out, almost all these films bombed. It was like, yeah, I personally people consider this to be like the one of the worst summer blockbuster seasons in years. Yeah, I have never seen this before. Of course, I've also seen Wonder Woman. Yes, I did see this in theaters. And I do agree with some people say it's by far the best film of DCEU films. And this is not the only DC film. I will get to the other one in a minute, basically. I didn't see this one in theaters, but I saw it online. But I didn't get a chance to go see it because, well, my dad was with my mom decided to finally go see it. Alright? It was a great film. Wonder Woman. Good fresh take. Patty Jenkins did a great job with this film. Gal Gadot. Fantastic job as Wonder Woman. One of two films she actually started this year as Wonder Woman. The other, of course, is a film we'll talk about soon. But not much else to say aside from the fact that I really appreciate Ares looking like the way he did during George Perez run, especially with the whole blue armor and the fact you can still see his face, despite him wearing the helmet. And he used metal from planes. I think it was like metal from tanks to make this thing, which is a little odd. And the fact the actor, I remember him from the Harry Potter films. He played R.J. Lupin. Yep, he was an old friend of the main character's father. Yeah, that's why I remember the guy. And it's interesting how he's one of two old guys who would portray a DC villain to get killed off, which is odd, to say the least. Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, next film. This is actually one of the very few R-rated films I saw this year. The other, of course, this one is The Hitman's Bodyguard, a film that starred Samuel L. Jackson, Ryan Reynolds, and Ellen Young. Yep, three people who play Marvel characters, and as the DC purchasing Fox, all three of them are in the MCU. Yep, all three of them in the MCU. I have heard for Deadpool, they're keeping Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool, which I think is awesome. The fact they're keeping him, and great idea, especially since his last film basically blew up the box office, and I think it's like currently the highest grossing R-rated film of all time. I think it's for Deadpool. Yeah, but this film, I think it is R-rated. I think it is. It's a comedy. It's interesting, and plus you also have Gary Oldman, basically another guy who's been in a comic-based movie, basically playing Commissioner Gordon. Though basically this time it's played by J.K. Simmons. I will get to that one in a few minutes. He plays a dictator on trial for war crimes, and almost like every other witness they try to bring in basically keeps getting killed, but not so much Axe's character. He managed to survive. Basically, after all the stuff they went through and the fact that he's actually responsible for Ryan Reynolds' character losing his A-list status, basically where he gets protect arms dealers so they can get big cash pays. Of course, the guy gets killed, and Charles Samuel Jackson's characters wanted to kill them. Yep. Now it seems a little odd though that a guy who basically is a paid contract killer is brought in as a witness. As far as I know, this is very credible to do, especially since even though they're a confessed killer, they're not going to lie on their oath to just save their own rear ends. They're not going to do that at all. And he actually did something unexpected. Basically, I know it's a spoiler, but the film's been out for several months now. I think it's on DVD now. Uh, Basically, he testifies in the trial. Basically, he was offered a job working for the dictator. He turned it down, and the reason he turned it down was because because the dictator was going to go to a village and basically, he was going to turn a village into and he was basically turned into a massacre. Yeah, and he took pictures via a satellite. He had via pictures he stole from a satellite in orbit, and he kept it basically as sort of like insurance. And then he told the prosecutor just to type in this password, go to this particular website, go this password, and then boom, pictures popped up, basically him ordering a massacre, and he confessed like, "Yep, it's all true." And of course, the film kind of with his life ended being thrown off a building of all things. But yeah, it was an awesome film and a bit criticized by the critics, but I personally enjoyed it. Yep. All right, so next is It Chapter 1. Me. This one I saw a couple months ago. I think I saw this one. Yeah, I saw this one by myself. Excuse me. My friend Tivius and I reviewed this film. I personally uh, love the fact that they really put a lot of the stuff that they took a lot of stuff from the source material that wasn't available, that they cut out from the original miniseries and put in this film. That was a little bit out of order. Though some of the stuff I was expecting, like because I actually watched the miniseries prior to seeing this film, so I guess I got a little bit of familiarity with this particular film. Plus some interesting stuff, a lot more violent in this film than the original one. And there's one scene I'm very happy with the fact they did not include in this version, which was a scene that was not even included in the original 1990 series. There's a scene in the novel where all the guys take turns doing it with the female member of the Losers Club. Now these characters are supposed to be 12 years old. Seeing preteen sex, especially in R-rated film, is kind of squicky. Even though, yeah, they got the R rating, but if they had done that, it would probably be rated NC-17, and I highly doubt that the film creators wanted to do that. And despite the fact the book itself was really long, I'm glad the fact they made it into a two-part film, and I think the part 2 is coming out next year, I believe it is. Yeah, I think coming out next year. Yeah, I think everybody did a really good job with the film for what they're given. And also, there's one particular thing I'm very happy with in this version. They actually decided to keep in. In the original version, it's implied. There's the opening scene basically of Georgie when he's out like in the spring when it's raining, and he gets his arm ripped off. Now they don't show this on screen, but basically they show like the aftermath of his arm basically being removed. Now in the 1990 series, it's implied this happened and he just died. In this one, he just disappeared and never found his body. I'm very happy they included that scene in, even though they show it graphically, which I'm very happy that did, especially since this little boy is supposed to be 8 years old, and seeing a child's arm ripped off would really turn a lot of people off, especially some people who are parents. Even if they're fans of the novel, they probably would not want to see us on screen. Now, apparently this happened off screen while Karen was looking away at somebody else, but then he turned way back to George, that same little boy, and his arm has already been removed, and he's bleeding like crazy. Seeing a removal of an adult losing his arm in film, that's fine. But seeing a child get his arm removed, basically seen graphically, that is unacceptable. Having this happen off screen and then showing the aftermath, that is fine. I think a lot of people can accept that. Yep. And I also got handed to the guy who portrayed Pennywise the Clown, It. Even though it wasn't Tim Curry this time, it was who played Pennywise. It was a different actor this time, and it was Bill Skarsgård. Yep, a Swedish actor. Yep. Yeah, the guy is Swedish. Yep. He let's see. No, I think this guy wasn't. I think it was somebody else. But I got handed to him for being the second actor to portray Pennywise the Clown in live action. He did an amazing job. Is he better than Tim Curry? Absolutely not. No one can top Tim Curry. I think he's just as good as Tim Curry, and the fact is his scenes are very memorable in the film. And like he actually did a little bit more than the Tim Curry version because this one he actually appeared in different forms throughout the whole series. And the black kid, Mike, I think his name is Michael. I believe he is. What is his name? No, it's not Ben. It's Mike. Yeah, this one is a little more skeptical. Him and the one who basically supposedly has asthma. Let's see, it's not Stan. I think it's Eddie. Yeah, Mike and Eddie are a little more skeptical than they were in the original 1990 series. The one who was skeptical a lot was Stan. Stan is not as skeptical as he was in the original series, and this film actually kept a lot of the fact that a lot of stuff that went to Mike in the 1990 series was restored back to Ben, which great for that. And one thing I also really enjoy about this film is get this, and I remember this from the yes, I got this right. This film opens the year I was born. Well, basically about 6 months after I was born, October 1988, and then jumps ahead to 1989, which I think is fantastic. Um, Now the sequel itself is supposed to take place. I think it's supposed to take place in 2018. I believe it's. Let me look at that. Let's see. Excuse me. Yeah. Yeah, the sequel for this film is gonna come out in 2 years, which that's fine. Maybe they're gonna have the rest of the novel with adult actors. But this one's gonna take place exactly 30 years after the original. It's that being 27, which is a little odd, but 30 years is fine. So yeah, there's it. Chapter 1. The one released was simply known as It. Next is Kingsman: The Golden Circle, where this film basically featured new characters. Basically, people like Channing Tatum got added to the film. Uh, Jeff Daniels. Yeah, I think it was Jeff Daniels. No, I think it was Jeff. It was Jeff Bridges. Yeah, which I think is the second comic book film I've actually seen. Because last film I saw him was a comic book based film. Even though this is not a comic book based character, but he was in a comic book based film, and that was the first Iron Man film. For Channing Tatum, I believe this is the first one I've seen basically was a comic book based film. G.I. Joe was based on a toy line. Yep. Despite what you will say about the two G.I. Joe films, I thought they had good stories, and despite the fact that the sequel kind of forgot a lot of the stuff that the first one did. Yep. Um, Also, Halle Berry in her third not her third. Let's see, 3, 4. I think this is her sixth comic book based movie she's been in because she's been in the main three X movies, Days of Future Past, Catwoman, and this film. So this is her sixth comic book based movie she's been in. This film is not necessarily based on the comic book itself; it's a sequel to the original film. Though they did make it, they do a sequel to the original comic. I haven't read the original comic book yet. Um, I think it's interesting. I thought it was a really cool idea. The fact in the sequel they had the main villain be a woman. Interesting idea. Not a lot of films, basically. I think this is one of two films this year where the main villain is a woman. Yeah, this is something a bit unusual for films. A lot of the time when there is main villain, a lot of the time it's a guy. Yes, it's a guy a lot of the time. But in the case of this year, this is actually one of two films where the main villain is in fact a woman, which got praised for that. And the film dealt with drugs, which was different, and also the fact that these characters had to go to America because almost all the kings were wiped out except for Iggy, Iggy, who was basically Agent Galahad and Agent Merlin. Yeah, these two are the only ones left alive. Though they did find Henry, who somehow survived the events of the previous film. Though they do explain in this film in a pretty interesting way because they later show this technique later on, and also the fact that apparently the statesmen are connected to the Kingsmen because their founder because because they're basically good friends and they're good cohesion of the statesmen. Um, and I thought it was really weird though the fact that because they were hitting with a pickaxe against a barrel that says 1960. Apparently that was sacrilegious to the statesman for some reason, and of course the main statesman was Channing Tatum, who spent half the film in basically in a bed. Yeah, and also um, I didn't like the fact, despite the fact he was heavily promoted to have a big role in this film, he doesn't. He gets taken out partway through the film, not seen again until like toward the very end. Yeah, and apparently his name is Tequila. That's his character's code name. Um, oh yeah, and the leader of the statesman is called Champagne. So apparently, all these characters' agents' names are basically named after popular, are basically named after alcohol. Though in the case of Halle Berry's character, she was originally as Agent Ginger Ale. Basically, she was a tech person, but she really wanted to go in the field. But apparently, she was. There was one agent who kept turning around. I think it was the one agent who was killed in the film. Um, I think it was Tequila. I think his name was. It was the guy who basically didn't want the things to go through. Let's see. It was not tequila. It was whiskey. Yeah, whiskey, aka Jack Daniels. He apparently kept turning down requests basically for her to go out in the field, but basically after he got killed off, she's like, okay, I'll take his job because he kept denying me advancement. Basically, go out in the field. It's like, champ, I like throw my hat in the ring for this job, and they're like, sure, and it was all unanimous vote, which was awesome. And Halle Berry was a great actor, so, and the fact that also, um, the fact that this film basically can do another sequel if it wanted to, even if it was with Channing Tatum. Especially since in this film, uh, the the princess that he met in the previous film, basically they started dating after the events of the previous film, and in this film they got married, and because they had Galahad basically because he's alive in this film, um, who is Harry, yeah, and basically the way he looked at this wedding, it looks like he was the best man because basically he was his mentor, and for fiction wise, this is a great choice for a best man. Basically, your mentor wanting to taught you everything about having good manners, and and also the fact that the agent Guinevere, apparently, despite the fact that it heavily implied that these two had a thing for that these two might be in a relationship, no, they're just good friends. And then she gets killed off partway through the film. And the only reason why he was able to avoid being killed was because he was out of town. He was actually in Switzerland of all things. Yeah, he was in Switzerland meeting with the royal family, which okay, that's interesting. Um, but yeah, and the fact that this villain is a huge fan of the 50s. She has a whole town of 50s 50s style town, like a diner, movie theater. Heck, they even had Elton John at them. It's like, wow, Elton John, that's interesting. And Henry Hart is like talking to him like, uh, it's like, can I get tickets to the next concert? He says, I'll get you better, backstage passes. I mean, yeah, Elton John is bisexual. Basically, trying to play moves with Henry Hart because Henry basically has been single for years. Yep. And it's great the fact that the main character got a chance to have a happy ending, um, with a princess of all things. Despite the fact the actress herself, now I looked it up. The actress is actually 8 years. The actress who plays the Swiss princess, who actually is Swiss in real life, she's actually 8 years older than the actor who plays Iggy. Yeah, uh, but Exit. Yeah, he actually is. She's 8 years older than he is, and this has just been one awesome film. It's been a pretty good year so far for films. Last two I saw were Thor Ragnarok and Star Wars: The Last Jedi. Yeah, I'll get to Last Jedi in a minute, but Thor Ragnarok. Wow, what one awesome film! And what I've heard, it seems like also the director's big love letter to the Flash Gordon film in 1982. It's somewhat like that, mixed in with stuff from the comic book, stuff like that. It's also a mixture between the classic Ragnarok story that Jack Kirby told, also the version of from Thor from disassembled tie the Thor's tie-in to Avengers Assembled, and also a partial adaptation of Planet Hulk, which is amazing. And also, I heard that originally the director was planning to have Beta rebuild in the film, but since his role was going to be very small, they decided to remove him from the film, basically, not have him in the film at all. Hmm. Yeah. So yeah, quite possibly one of my favorite films of the year. And the last time I saw, this one I saw last week, was Star Wars: The Last Jedi. Now, I think it's quite stupid the whole fan petition to remove this film from canon, especially since it's good. All the characters were enjoyable. I mean, yeah, despite people not liking the character Rose, I thought she was a pretty good part of the plot. I mean, yeah, she's a mechanic, but it's not the first time I've seen it where a mechanic falls in love with one of the main characters. I actually have seen this in an anime, believe it or not. I saw this in Mobile Suit Fighter G Gundam. Yeah, I actually saw in that one where a mechanic fell in love with the main character, and the mechanic is a smoking hot woman in that one. In this one, I have no opinion on this woman, but her falling in love with Finn, that's interesting. Interesting plot development. And it happens sort of gradually with, of course, I mean, I think it's kind of hinted at early on that she may have a thing for him, but yeah. But this, in my honest opinion, was a really good film. Even though the film was not, it's sad what happened to Luke, but I accept the way he died. Yep, I accept it. And I don't agree with a lot of the criticism for this film at all. Um, Plus, uh, I love the chemistry between Oscar Isaac and John Boyega. I think their characters have got the best chemistry, and their friendship is very reminiscent of Luke Skywalker and Han Solo of the original trilogy. In the case of Poe, he basically is kind of like the Han Solo of the series, while Finn is kind of like a mixture between Luke Skywalker and I would say Luke Skywalker, a little bit of Han Solo in a way, but yeah. Though a lot of people are still questioning exactly who he's related to, basically. And there's also a big mystery around Finn. He's actually the one character that did much development. I mean, he got a good amount of development in the film, but it seems like we don't exactly reveal who his family is. Ray, it's a bit of a disappointment what happened to that, and I think also Andy Serkis did a great job portraying Snoke again. Though we still don't know where the heck this guy came from, and he's one of those characters that are a big mystery. And I love the fact he has his own Crimson version of the Crimson Guard. The Crimson Guard in the original trilogy, well, basically, and they kind of basically made the first live action appearance chronologically in Revenge of the Sith. These were guys were they were the bodyguards of first Chancellor Palpatine and then Emperor Palpatine. And Snoke's like, okay, let's have my own version of these things. And I've heard from one person that apparently they're all women, and they all have their own various weapons, and the fact that they're all defeated by um, Rey and Kylo Ren, who apparently his real name is definitely Ben Solo. She kept calling him Ben. Oh yeah, and Snoke never saw this guy stand up at all the whole film, which I'm like, that's odd. Yeah, and also Captain Phasma's in the film for like 5 minutes, and apparently she dies. Though I wouldn't be surprised she said she survived because she survived the Force Awakens on screen. They don't mention it, but if you want to get an explanation of how she survived, read the Captain Phasma series by Kelly Thompson. Yeah, that explains how the heck she survived coming out of a garbage chute, or at least a trash compactor. Yep. Uh, and that was all the films I saw this year in the films. There was a couple of films that came out this year I missed in theaters, but I did see online. First was Transformers: The Last Night. Despite the fact this was actually the lowest grossing film in the series, I heard it grossed like 600 million. Uh, for a Transformer film, it's not very. Basically, Michael Bay doesn't do his common treads he does in the previous films, like over exploiting women or like massive. There's explosions, but that's not like over the top like in the previous films. And also, not a lot of American flag seen in the film, and the fact a lot of the film takes place in the UK and a little bit in America. Uh, Anthony Hopkins, great job in the film. Mark Wahlberg, it seems a little odd though he's named a knight, which is odd though, and the fact that woman he hangs out with and his daughter is actually not in the film. She gets a brief voiceover, which I think some people are quite happy she's not in the film because some people probably find it quite annoying. Um, though this film takes place just a few short years after the events of the previous film. Um, and plus, one of my favorite shots of the whole film is Cybertron passing by the moon, scraping through the moon, and passing by the ship they actually found in Transformers Dark of the Moon, passing by it, which is a great continuity nod, and coming directly to Earth. And the fact that Quintessa is actually the main villain, which, okay, so, yeah, another film where the main villain is a woman. No, this one is a CGI villain. Yeah. Um, Quite possibly the best film since the original Transformers film, especially since a lot of people have had mixed feelings on the last three films that come out for the series. But this film, in my honest opinion, is probably Michael Bay's best film of the series. Even though it's his last film he's going to do, I have heard he's going to come back for Transformers 7, but he's not going to be in Transformers 6. He's not going to do that one. And Mark Wahlberg is done after this film. Um, I'm glad the people from the Nest are back because I thought it was odd they were absent from the previous film, which was, yeah, very odd. Um, yeah, there was no explanation why they were absent from the last film. And also, yeah, the fact that one of the characters got killed basically with a football. Yeah. I also kind of like the fact that we didn't exactly have, well, interesting human villains this time. Now, I think Kelsey Grammer, I think a lot of people can agree, Kelsey Grammer was a lot more interesting as a villain than Lockdown. Yeah, he was a lot more interesting because Kelsey Grammer is always interesting to watch on screen because that's the way he is. He has good charisma. Lockdown has zero charisma at all. As for Quintessa, she was interesting. I like the fact they kept the spaceship from the previous film. It seems like they shrunk it a little bit. But I really wish they would have explored that ship a little bit more in this film. I like the fact that Grimlock basically is seen the film. He's seen a little bit, and he's quite hilarious. Especially, I love the fact he ate a sheriff's car, which I thought was so funny. Yeah, and of course, yeah, great film. I do recommend it. I don't own it on DVD, but I thought it was amazing. The other film I saw online, I missed it. I didn't get a chance to see in theaters. Was Justice League. Now, despite what people say about this film, it is good, really good film. I enjoy every. The only film character I kind of thought was a little annoyed with was the Flash, probably because I'm so used to Grant Gustin. Yeah, I like the fact a lot of characters get a little bit of development, and I thought it was odd though for what they said with their base operation, instead with Wayne Manor of all things. I'm like, okay, when you think of the Justice League, what's the first? Wait, we think of the base operation. What's the first thing always comes to mind? The Watchtower, the big space station they always have, or in the case of their original origin story, the Secret Sanctuary, aka Mount Justice. But Wayne Manor, that's interesting. I think they stole that idea from Marvel, basically, the Avengers being headquartered, Avengers managed. Excuse me. Yeah. Stephen Wolf, I thought was interesting. The guy Bertram did a great job, but I thought he was, in my opinion, he was too thin. He looked way too thin to be a film because in the comics he's very bulky. In the film he's like very skinny. Yeah. I think no one can deny that Jason Momoa's Aquaman is awesome in this film. And I also gotta love the fact the guy got a lot more screen time than he did in the previous film, in Batman v Superman. In this film, he actually got more than just a quick 30-second cameo. He was a major player in the film, and plus he had one badass look as well. And also, I gotta give praise to J.K. Simmons, Jim Gordon. Absolute fantastic job. And also, the first film to feature the bat signal in a film since Dark Knight Rises. Yeah, so it's been a good 5 years. Well, actually, they did feature the bat signal in Batman Superman, but Batman was using it. But this is the first time Jim Gordon has used it since Dark Knight Rises, and also the first time Jim Gordon has been seen. And I gotta hand to people who casted him. I think definitely do agree J.K. Simmons was an excellent choice to be Jim Gordon. He had good time. He had great chemistry with possibly the best person aside from Batman. I'd say he had great chemistry with Wonder Woman and had a really funny moment with the Flash. He's like, "Oh, I guess they decided to leave." Like, "Okay, bye." I thought it was just so funny. And of course, everybody knew about the whole CGI mustache thing because um, apparently Superman had to be clean shaven, so having a mustache. That was Resurrection bit weak, but they kind of used the thing that Lex Luthor did to create the so-called Doomsday, even though that was one of many Doomsdays. And it's also revealed that apparently Steppenwolf was actually defeated one of the Doomsdays. And they also keep the fact in this film, not despite the fact I had heard they actually switched this in promotional stuff where they changed it where Darkseid was Steppenwolf's uncle. In this film, they actually kept it. They actually kept the fact that Steppenwolf is Darkseid's uncle. Yeah. And the fact he's exiled for some reason. Yeah, in the film they never explain why. Maybe it wasn't a lead scene, I don't know. I heard that there was one little moment that raised controversy when one of the Amazons showed off their rear end. Um, I heard about this and I saw this in the film. I'm like, who freaking cares about seeing a woman's partial rear end? At least not seeing her butt crack in a PG-13 film. I mean, yeah, you show partially of a cheek. So what? Who freaking cares? Yeah, that controversy was so stupid anyways. And the fact this was the first film in this universe to see a version of the Green Lanterns, even though they were never named, but anyone could tell it's the freaking Green Lanterns in the past. Yeah, and apparently the Parademons, I love their look. I love the fact they very much reminiscent of the classic Jack Kirby look, except there's one slight problem I have with them. Apparently they feed on fear, which, that was odd. Why in the world would they feed on fear? It's one of the most bizarre things I have ever seen when it comes to the Parademons. I think it was odd they exploded, but yeah. And it was acceptable for Bruce Wayne to grow a beard when he was searching for Aquaman. Yeah. But otherwise, though, Cyborg I thought he got a good arc of the whole film, and the fact by the end of the film he got a little more closer to how he looks in the comics, which I thought was great. Ray Stevenson, the actor, I think he did a great job portraying Cyborg, despite the fact it was his first ever film he was in. First film he was in, and he did a great job. Yep. And of course, that's all the live action films. Now, there was 2 anime films I saw that came out this year. I saw these online. I do own these films. One, of course, is Justice League Dark. The other is the Judas Contract. I do own both these films. Yeah. For these particular films, Justice League Dark is probably the first film that I've heard of that actually got a good reception from people, and also the way it ended, they could have done a sequel, but who knows if they're going to do one. And plus, the film was a partial adaptation of the first arc of the Justice League Dark series. I actually thought the land was interesting, but I thought it was a little odd they could bring in a little more characters. And no one can deny bringing back Matt Ryan as John Constantine was an excellent idea. Also, the character Richie, same guy which him in the Constantine TV show, same actor, which amazing. I think this film should get a follow-up, and for this particular film, I definitely did think Batman was acceptable for being in the film as part of the Justice League Dark, because he was in the first arc of the series, so why not? And the Justice League themselves, the main Justice League, they play a small role in this film, which that's more acceptable than the role in Justice League versus Teen Titans. I'll talk about the follow-up in a minute. Yeah, one really awesome. I did review this film after I got it on DVD, and the other film I'm gonna talk about in a minute. I did get this film on DVD, and I own it right now, and that's Teen Titans: The Judas Contract, which is a sequel to Justice League versus Teen Titans. If you want to get my full opinion on that, check out the review of the series, review of that particular film. You have to look it up basically for this channel. But yeah, those are all the films I did see this year. 12 in theaters, 2 live action films I saw online. The other 2 I did see online, but I do own the films anyways. Um, but yeah, it was it's about the same much as I saw last year, which was actually is a little bit less, basically. But in theaters, I only saw 12 films, which is actually less than I saw last year, which was 16. There's more films I did want to see, but I just didn't get a chance to go to the movies to go see them. Mainly because my dad was waiting on my mom, basically, to go to these movies. So there's that. So that's it for this episode. Stay tuned whenever I get a chance to do episode 58. I don't know when that will be, and I don't know what's coming on, but I kind of figured, though, it's getting close to the end of the year, so why not do this one, okay? But until I see you in the next video, bye.